Hi, in this video we're going to read and write to a file which we may not be able to do. So this is going to require some new coding techniques. Here in the update method, first we're going to call the procedure, the new procedure to do this. It goes in case 99, which is the case where we've just won the game. It's called get high scores. We get our little blue rectangle. So we're going to generate the new method stub, and there it is. And we're going to cut this and paste it down at the bottom. We've been doing with the new methods. There we go. Make sure to get the curlies right and paste it, and then get rid of this line. And the first thing we're going to do is create a Boolean variable that is going to track whether or not we're successful doing this. So we're going to call it bool working file IO. It's initially going to be set to true. If we have any problems along the way, it'll get set to false. Okay, so we're going to start writing this code. And the first line is try, and then a curly. And then we're going to skip ahead here to the end, because this is going to take a while to type in. And there it's all typed in. There's 3 sections to this. We're going to talk about these individually. So here's our first section of code. You see it's got this try section at the top, and then a section at the bottom called catch. Now what happens is the try section gets run. If anywhere along the way the system can't execute a line, if it generates an error, rather than sending you back the error, what it does is execute the catch section instead, which sets that bool working file IO to false. So then it basically saves the system from having the program crash on you, and also gives you back information that you might be able to do something with in this catch section. So let's look at the try section. It's obviously the biggest. So the first line is the file read new file stream burgershighscores.txt, file mode opener create, file access read. What that's going to do is look on the system in the same place where the program lives for a file called Burger High Scores, and it's just a text file, nothing fancy. And opener create in the file mode, what that means is, all right, I'm going to go look for it. If I find it, great, I'll open it. If I don't find it, I'm going to create it. And this is where we might have a problem, because, well, your system may not let you read and write information to the disk, to the system. There may be a permissions problem. There may be a space problem. There's no room to write something. You may physically not be able to write to the system for one reason or another. So this is where we could have a problem. If we don't, if we have no problem, then the next step here, the score read equals new stream reader file read. Gets ready to read the file in. Now, there may or may not be anything in the file. If we just created it, it's going to be blank. If there are things in the file, though, they're going to get read in. And we use this for loop here for int I equals 0, while I is less than max scores and I++. It's going to go through one by one and read in the scores. So it's going to put them in this first array, this first text string array that we created called text high scores 01. So the score read dot read line reads in whatever is in there, one line at a time. The next section says, okay, if what I read in was null, meaning there was nothing there, which either the file has just been created, so there's nothing in the file, or it doesn't have as many scores in the file yet as we need for max high scores. You start, you play the game once, you get 1 score, play the game again, you get another score. Well, you don't have the max high scores, number of scores yet. You've got 2. Max high scores is 5. So what this does is any scores that aren't there up to max high scores fills that place in with 0 in the array. So you don't get a null sitting there in the string array. So then it closes the score read and closes the file read, which are 2 variables. So what this did was it created the Burger High Scores file if it didn't exist, if it could, but if it did exist, it read in the scores it had, and if there weren't enough scores, it plugged the rest of those spaces in our array with zeros. And that's it for this. Okay, in this section is where we actually write the current score into the list of high scores if it's high enough. Now, the first thing we do is test here the if bool working file IO. Because if we had a problem in that first section, well, there's no reason even to bother with this section because it's not going to matter because we weren't able to read or write to the system. But if we were able to read or write to the system, this is going to go through. It's going to check the current score against the high scores that we read in. And if we find a place where the current score is greater than the score from the list that we're looking at, the current score gets put into the list. So we have 2 different lists here. We have text high scores 1 and text high scores 2. Text high scores 1 is what we read in. Text high scores 2 has our current score in the list if it was high enough. So we're going to do a loop for int I equals 0. I is less than max scores, which is 5 in this case, I plus plus. If the current score is greater than the high scores from the list score that we're looking at right now, then we're going to deal with putting it into the list. But we have to do this convert here about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or so lines in this. If int current score is greater than, convert to int 32, text high scores 1, and I is equal to j. We'll talk about that in a second, that I equals j. So if that current score was higher than the high scores we're looking at right now, go ahead and write that into the string. But we have to do this convert because the scores are text. We need to turn them into numbers to see if they're greater than or less than what's going on. So this middle section writes that score into the second array. It increments the variables, the I variable, so we go on to the next one. If it's not higher, then down here in the else, we just write that whatever our text high score 1 is for that index into 2. And then we increment j. Now, once we have incremented these things, if we put our new score, our current score, into the list, then the indexes I and j will no longer be the same. They'll be off by 1, so that's why that I equals j is in the test. Now, this is probably the most complex little bit of code that we've got in this entire course. I'd like for you to look through to understand how this goes, but the logic here is a little nasty. If you don't understand it, it's absolutely not the end of the world. Just type it in the way it is and use it. It'll work. It does work. So don't get too hung up on this one. It's just a way to sort things and put something new into the sorted list. Okay, this last section here is kind of the mirror of the first section. Now that we've got our new string array, which is text high scores 2, which has our current score in it, if the current score was high enough, we're going to write that back to the system if we can. So we have this try-catch wrapper here, which again, if there's an error that shows up anywhere in the try, which means we couldn't really write to the system, then rather than crashing the program, it generates an internal error which just pushes it down to the catch section and sets that bool working file IO equal to false. But if we don't, if it works, then these lines up here in the try get executed. So we've got the file write, new file stream, burger high scores. File mode create, file access write. And what this is saying is, I'm going to create a file called burger high scores. I don't care if there was one out there before, doesn't matter. If there was, this is going to write right over the top of it, so the old one's going to get destroyed and it's going to be replaced by the new one. Then the next line is the score write equals new stream writer, the file write. This is what sort of gets us ready, opens up the path to write the information to this new file that we just created called burgerhighscores.txt. And again, this is where we could have a problem where for one reason or another we're not able to write information to the system. So then we have a loop for int I equals 0, I is less than max scores, I plus plus, the score write line, text high scores 02, and the index I. So this is just going to go through the indexes of the array 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, which are our 5 values, and write them in one at a time on a new line. So then they'll be ready to be read back in the next time this runs and put the then current score into the list if it's high enough. So the score write close, the file write close, just closes that stream that we've opened up to the file to write to it if we were able to open it. So that's the end of the third section. Again, this is nasty complex stuff here. It'd be good if you understand it. That way you'll be able to make changes if you want to in your own games, maybe do things a little differently. You can use this code pretty much exactly as it is for your games and write the scores. If you want more than 5 scores, you just set your max high scores variable to something else, and that's really all the difference you need to do. So understand it if you can, but use it in any case. So that's it for now, and we'll just save, and we're done.